It is a pleasure to join the CTC team again for this webcast. You know, we did a joint webcast, I believe, back in November. So if you happen to dial in for that one, I have additional details to share with you. So stay posted. I would like to, during our time, kind of start from a very high level and talk about some of the changes that are going on within the different industries, particularly AEC, and then shift to really how Autodesk is changing our subscription model and how we're delivering our technologies to really support the flexibility that really the market's asking for. So as I shared from a high level, you know, if we really look at the big picture, technology has always disrupted how things have been made. And disruption is, you know, not really necessarily a negative word, though some can react to it that way. Disruption is really a good word because as technology has driven changes, it really drives a change within processes as well as brings new opportunities. Now, today, we're still seeing where technology is driving some disruptions, but we're also seeing how changes in technology are impacting how products and spaces are used, how things are sold, as well as serviced. Now, this covers a wide range of examples, and I'm just going to cite a few. You know, we see today where medical devices, for example, can be customized for an individual user and very cost-effectively produced and manufactured and delivered as a one-off for that customer. We see companies expanding beyond where we normally see them driving business, and Rolls-Royce is a great example of this with their Power by the Hour program and how they're changing the fundamental business model related to selling jet engines. And from an AEC or a space perspective, we see Google entering the market by selling Nest. Now, they're selling Nest not because they want to sell more thermostats, but instead they see Nest as a piece of the connected environment, whether that be business or home, and a way to expand their reach. So clearly, technology advancements have the potential to impact a wide range of businesses, including your own business. Now, technologies are driving disruptions, and I want to drive a little bit and give some examples within the AEC space, because these disruptions and the technology of how it's impacting is also impacting buildings, right? So it's not just a handheld device. We see today where physical things are connected to one another, but they're also now becoming deeply interconnected systems. The physical and the digital interconnection really creates new opportunities to add value to a built space or asset. The Nest thermostat, which I mentioned earlier, actually learns an occupant's behaviors and offers better environmental control and energy efficiency. This data-driven insight from these interconnected systems and about how we use a space is actually even scaling up to environments like the Midfield Airport Terminal in Dubai. There they use very sophisticated technology for baggage handling, for how they manage duty-free item sales, as well as processing of passengers. These interconnected systems and the intelligent data that they deliver provide us a way to respond to the high demand for high performance across so many dimensions, like occupancy levels, energy performance, and water usage, just to name a few. These interconnected or connected systems will create opportunities for building owners and occupants, designers and contractors, and product manufacturers, the entire ecosystem. It really allows them to extend their collective capabilities. In the future, buildings and their elements will generate streams of data, and these objects will be the data from which analysis will be used to form connected systems and bring further insight. We will understand through these linkages how spaces and structures perform in terms of systems, meaning environmentally as well as economically. And we'll have more insight and control from any place at any time, whether that's to reduce energy consumption, build more efficiently, or even develop more responsive spaces. A key takeaway for you to know is we can see today how there's a big impact or the potential for a big impact to be made with each small decision we make, whether that decision's made in design, in construction, operation, or even in the occupation of a space. The impact and the potential for the impact going forward is large. Now, of course, underlying these changes is also an evolution in technology and the technology used to actually design things. At Autodesk, we've divided this evolution into 3 technology eras: the era of documentation, optimization, and connection. The era of documentation was focused on digitizing existing processes and managing the data that resulted. It provided efficiencies but did not fundamentally change the processes. The era of optimization provided new ways to solve problems that could not be solved effectively with traditional development and physical prototyping processes. This allowed companies to increase their capabilities as well as reduce costs and shorten their time to market. The era of connection, which is really the era we're entering into today, extends the ability of companies to connect their business processes and collaborate with stakeholders, and to change the way they operate, to transform from a product-only business to an enterprise model where really it brings and extends the services available. In fact, we see firms doing this today, right? We see, whether it be a design-build firm or maybe an architectural firm, that once a design or a building is completed, construction is completed, keys are handed over to the owner, those firms are finding additional services to continue to either provide facility services management, continual update of as-built drawings, and helping managing services within those facilities to keep them current. It's important to realize that each era incorporates the era that came before. It's not as if documentation goes away when a company adopts optimization. And similarly, a company that moved into the era of connection still optimizes products during development and still does documentation. Now, as we talk about some of the disruptions within the AEC market, we can really take a look from a building and design and construction perspective, break this down into 3 buckets around production, demand, and the products themselves. These 3 major disruptions really together are catalyzing what we see as a new era for the built environment. Each one of these on their own will have a big impact for building, design, and construction, but when combined together is really what's driving the key overall disruptions. By the means of production, we talk about how we think about and deliver buildings, both intellectually and physically. Both of these are changing. There's a shift in our attitudes about what intellectual property means, about who contributes to it and who owns it. Cloud and mobile technology means we can design anywhere and everywhere and with anyone we choose. Now, when we talk about the nature of demand, by that I mean how customers want to interact with their space, how occupants drive what they need in a building, as well as what we produce in the design. All 3 of these are also evolving. Clients want high-quality projects that benefit from collaboration and achieve an excellence and a balance between costs, project risks, and rewards. The third area is really products, and by that I mean the buildings, the assets as well as the design that we use to construct them. Whether that's a piece of equipment, a system, or a whole building, what we see is a huge change in all 3 of these buckets: production, demand, and products. And all of this is happening because, again, the digital and the physical worlds are becoming deeply intertwined. Now, along with this change, we also see a new era of competition. Every time we have seen disruptions within the markets, whether it be manufacturing, AEC, and this is throughout the history, we also see it brings, again, a new era of competition, which can be characterized by these 4 buckets: processing, talent, capital, as well as the meshing of data. We're going to see access to unlimited processing power and how it will be able to solve the most complex problems. In fact, most likely it'll be required to be able to solve complex problems. There'll be seamless connection of talent so that the best ideas can come forward and are considered. Intelligent digital connectivity of buildings is also going to unlock new forms of value. And of course, the last area around capital really shows that we will have freer access to capital due to the reduction in risks. And also we're seeing new opportunities of sourcing alternative financing like crowdfunding. A key takeaway here is that these capabilities are going to be available to any company, regardless of size, type, or location. the barriers to access will be low. And this is why the competition increases. If you think of many firms might come to your mind in terms of how they have differentiated themselves in the market. Maybe they had a very unique talent pool. Maybe they had access to technologies that allowed them to process or deliver in a way that a client wanted to. As these barriers for all of these components are lowered, that is what drives the increase in competition. Now, along with this change also brings subscription is also being part of this new norm. Now, this is not unique to Autodesk. It's not unique to software companies. In fact, many of you might even be seeing benefits of this in your personal life as well as in the business world. So let me just step aside just for a few moments and just highlight very quickly some examples we see in our everyday life in terms of the benefits of having access to digital data, being able to access it from anywhere at any time. You know, newspapers are a great example. Many may still have a newspaper delivered to their front door, but more and more people are subscribing to the news digitally, which allows them to access the news from wherever they're at, whenever they want, and also from whatever type of device they would like to access it. So getting your local news doesn't mean you necessarily have to be in that local community to receive the paper news. You can be on the other side of the world and still be just as up to date with what's going on with your local community back at home. We also see this with magazine subscriptions being digitized and changing, and we also see this with entertainment. You can still go down in many areas to a brick and mortar store to access the newest DVD to watch the movie release of your choice. But again, more and more people are subscribing to streaming services that allow them to leverage the digital data at a high convenience level to view the entertainment they want, where they want it, when they want it, and across whatever device they'd like. Now, the benefits that we see in subscription, again, many of us might be experiencing in our personal lives, is no different than what we'll be experiencing from a business perspective. So what I'd like to do is update here just real quick and talk about some of the, forgive me, I've got just a slight glitch here. So if you can just hold for a moment, my apologies. And just bear with me. I was sharing with Nate that I have an ice storm here in Atlanta. So I've had just a quick disruption and it's coming back up. Here we go. I think we're back on. So I apologize for that. So what I'd like to do is talk about the Autodesk subscription model and how we've been delivering products, particularly this year, and what we started just a couple of years ago. Autodesk has communicated to our customer base that we will be delivering all of our technologies via a subscription. And right now we have 3 different vehicles of how we deliver that software. First, we have our maintenance subscription contracts that really support our permanent licenses. We have desktop subscription licenses, which we introduced a couple years ago, as well as cloud-based services. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the cloud-based services, but I did just want to touch base that we have started to deliver new technologies, completely cloud-based, so they're hosted in the cloud, solutions like our A360, BIM 360, Fusion 360. We'll continue to bring new offerings to the market via the cloud and our cloud subscriptions, but I'd really like to focus on the rest of our solutions and how we're bringing those to market. There really are not any changes to our cloud subscription-based products at this time. As I shared, I'd like to kind of just touch on our maintenance subscription and then contrast that and talk about the additional flexibility that our desktop subscriptions bring to the market. As many of you are aware that have permanent licenses today, last year Autodesk discontinued our manual upgrades of software. So anybody that has a permanent license and has and sees a value in having access to the newest releases as well as other benefits like previous use rights. We've got some global use rights, some basic support, and product enhancements. Maintain those licenses on a maintenance subscription contract. Those permanent licenses are yours to use indefinitely, whether it's on a maintenance subscription contract or not, as hence the word our perpetual or permanent license. Those licenses are also tagged to a hardware device. Now, we do have licenses that are networked, and I'm going to talk about networked licenses here in a few minutes, so if that's the work environment that your organization has, please stay tuned. The permanent licenses generally are tied to an asset. Your software resides on your hardware, as well as your license and your data. Now, the one thing that I want to share with folks, and I'm going to share some upcoming dates, but one of the things that we're doing with our different subscription vehicles is we are more putting them aligned so that they operate the same way. The one example for that is, and this impacts those who have a maintenance subscription contract. Currently, our desktop and our cloud subscriptions all must be renewed in a timely fashion. If you don't renew it in a timely fashion, meaning on time, you lose access to that software until you have resubscribed to it. Our maintenance subscription is also going to work under the same operation in terms of it must be renewed on time. After the end of January, customers will no longer have the option to renew a maintenance subscription contract late or pay a late fee. There's no such thing as a grace period after the expiration date. It will be key that if you currently are on a maintenance subscription contract and you want to maintain the benefits that maintenance subscription brings your permanent licenses, it's very important that you renew your maintenance subscription contracts on time. You can continue to renew it for as long as you would like, but it's key that it's renewed on time or even early. You can renew a maintenance subscription contract up to 90 days before its expiration date. After this month, if you let a maintenance subscription contract expire, you will not have the opportunity to renew it or put those permanent licenses back on maintenance subscription. Now, you'll have access to a subscription vehicle, but it will be our desktop subscription model going forward. Let's take a closer look in terms of the comparisons between the maintenance and the desktop subscriptions. Here you can see under maintenance are several, but not all, of the benefits that the maintenance subscription contract brings. I'd now like to kind of talk about the desktop subscription model and talk about the additional flexibility that it brings to the market that our permanent licenses do not. As I shared, the permanent licenses you can use indefinitely, whether it's on maintenance subscription or just as the license that you purchased. Now, the desktop subscription, though, that license allows holders to use the software for a specific period of time. You can acquire a desktop subscription for a 30-day, 3-month, or 1 quarter, or for an annual license. Now, both the desktop subscription and the maintenance subscription contracts can be extended for a 2- or 3-year contract. And that really allows you to lock down today's prices for the next 2 or 3 years. But other flexibility that the desktop subscription brings in terms of being able to have a license for a 30-day, a quarter, or just an annual period does several things for the customers and for yourself. One, if your business has an ebb and flow in staffing or project load, and you find where you need to bring on additional staff and need additional licenses to cover a particular project or a period of time where you have a heavy project load, the desktop subscription license allows you to purchase and pay for the license for the duration of time that you need it. When you go back down to your regular staffing or your project loads go back to normal workload, there's no need to continue to pay a maintenance or retain those licenses if you're not using them. You can let those expire, and then if it's 6 months, 6 weeks, or 2 years later and you have an increase in your staffing and projects again, you can bring on the additional licenses you need again for the time that you need them. Now, another benefit that the desktop subscription brings, and I talked about when we see a new era of competition about how the barriers are low for entry, and with that increases the competition within the market, the competition that you're competing against. Desktop subscription also lowers the barrier because we have a lower cost of entry on desktop subscription. This means that if I want to acquire a license, say for example of AutoCAD, it takes a lower upfront cost to do it as a desktop subscription than it does for a permanent license. So permanent licenses have a large upfront cost investment and tend to have a lower maintenance ongoing cost. Desktop subscriptions have a much lower initial investment in capital to acquire that license and has a pretty level then go forward maintenance or continuation of that contract cost. Now, why is this a benefit? The lower cost of entry also makes technology much more accessible to many more firms. It gives you flexibility to bring in a unique software that you might need for an individual project. It allows you more cost-effectively to pilot new software or to work with a new application to see how it works and incorporates into your current workflow process. You know, it's important to also note that the desktop subscriptions provide the same benefits provided in a maintenance subscription contract. You still have previous use rights. We talk about the basic support, latest software, access to the latest software. All of those are provided to you in the desktop subscription model also. You also access the same full version of software that is provided in the permanent license. Now, another uniqueness to the desktop subscription that brings additional flexibility to customers is that the desktop license as a single user, which is what we're selling today, is assigned actually to the user and not to a piece of hardware or to an asset. So that allows me to acquire a license and load it on as many hardware devices that I would like to use. So I can have it installed at the office, at home, on a laptop if I travel, as well as a tablet if my software supports that. It's tagged to the user versus the hardware, again, providing much more flexibility. Now, one question or concern that comes up, and I want to make sure everybody understands this, is on the desktop subscription, the software and your data is also stored locally. It is not stored in the cloud. Now, of course, your company can choose to store your data in the cloud, and that's how you access it, but the desktop subscription does not require that. So just as today, as many of you with a permanent license go to download the newest release of software, you download it from the internet, you install it on your hardware, if it's purchased new, you're downloading your license, activating it. You do the exact same thing with your desktop subscription. Now, one unique difference is you do not need the internet to always be working with your desktop subscription. You do need to access the internet to download your software, download your license, and activate it. And then you can disconnect through the internet for 30 days. Now, when you're about 7 days before that 30-day time period in your software, it will remind you that you need to reconnect to the internet briefly to initiate and re-verify your desktop subscription license. Now, this is for the single user model. If your office is set up on a network, or if this model is not convenient for you, stay with me for a few more minutes because you'll find more flexibility underneath the network licensed model. And I'll talk about that just in a moment. So as we move forward, we see where our customers will have a number of different scenarios. Some customers are going to choose to retain their permanent licenses and continue to renew their maintenance subscription contracts. Many of our customers will have hybrid working environments where they will have some permanent licenses and then we'll also be working with desktop subscriptions. And then we already have customers today who are working completely on a desktop subscription model. Here's another view of some of the benefits of your subscription contracts, whether they be maintenance or a desktop subscription. You'll see that the same benefits for maintenance are available in desktop. And I'll take this opportunity to reinforce that both subscription contracts provide previous version rights, 3 versions back. You also have some global use rights, meaning that if you need to take your software outside of your home country, you can do that for up to 90 days within any given calendar year. If you need to be out of the country for more than 90 days, you need to acquire what we call extra territory rights or global territory rights, which is an additional fee that can be worked with Autodesk to give you that additional flexibility. Now, of course, the one option that the maintenance subscription does not provide, that Autodesk desktop subscription does, is the flexibility, the pay-as-you-go option, meaning pay for the time of duration you expect to actually use the license. Now, you can see underneath network licenses for desktop subscription, it says coming soon. And those are right around the corner. So I do want to take a few minutes and talk about your network licensing options. Many of you are familiar with network licenses because you have permanent licenses that are networked. We're going to be introducing term-based network licenses. So the name hasn't been finalized, so I'm just going to kind of refer to them as term-based, but they are just like our desktop subscription licenses. You buy a license for a predetermined amount of time, and it will allow you to network them. Now, I think the biggest question that most people have is, how is this actually going to work? So let me hit on some top and I think some key things where questions have come up for customers. One, the term-based network licenses will be utilizing the same licensing file technology that is currently used for our permanent network licenses. This means that you'll be able to merge an existing license file from term-based network licenses with an existing of permanent network licenses. And you can run this all on the same license server. Also, there's no need to access any new license managed utilities. If you're using the Network License Manager currently today to manage your permanent network licenses, you'll use the exact same utility to manage your term-based network licenses in a hybrid environment. The two licenses will actually work exactly the same. As I talked about, the desktop subscription for a single user needing to ping into the internet every 30 days, your network term-based licenses will not need to do that. They will operate just as your permanent network licenses do today. Now, these term-based licenses will be available to you in a 1, 2, or 3-year term. Unlike the individual user, the network licenses for term-based will not be available in a 30-day or a quarterly. We will bring to market all of the individual software products that we currently have available as permanent licenses will be made available to customers as term-based network licenses. These will be available for purchase in the beginning of February. I don't have a specific date, but I expect it to be in the first half. Now, here's a URL if you have some additional questions around network licensing and some of the changes that are coming that are posted on the Autodesk.com public website. So some more frequently asked questions and answers you can find posted there. Now, I'd like to share with you some of the upcoming dates that many of you might be aware of. January 31st is the first date, and it literally is the end of really next week. The 31st is a Sunday, and so I would encourage you, if you want to make any purchases or acquisitions before the end of the month, please do not wait until next Thursday or Friday to do it. Please do it today. Do it tomorrow at the latest to ensure you get in, as there may be an influx of orders and you just want to make sure it gets processed. January 31st is going to be the last date, an opportunity for customers to purchase a new seat of most of our permanent individual solutions. Now, this really impacts customers and companies who wish really to purchase, again, new permanent software licenses. If you currently own those licenses today, you can continue using them. And as I shared, if it's important to you to continue receiving the updates and support that subscription brings, keep your maintenance subscription contracts current. Here's a complete list of all of the individual solutions that are impacted by the January 31st date. As I shared, it's most of them, but not all of them. Again, at the bottom of the screen is a URL where you can find all of the products listed on Autodesk.com regarding our upcoming deadlines. Now, as I have this list up, I want to share with you a couple of other things. If you currently own one of these permanent licenses as a standalone license, and you would like to convert that to a network permanent license, you need to do that prior to January 31st. Also, if you have one of these licenses and it is currently not on a maintenance subscription, but it is on the most current release that we have available, you have until the end of the month to actually put that on a maintenance subscription contract. So you have very little time left, but there is time for you to reach and work with CTC to get that accomplished. Now, the next date that I want to share with you is July 31st. And this is the last opportunity to purchase new permanent seats of most of our suite solutions, as well as some additional individual solutions. Here's the list of products impacted for the U.S. and Canada on July 31st. You can see a list of the design and creation suites, as well as additional individual products that are impacted by the July 31st date. Now, this change that Autodesk is making, driving all of our software delivery to a subscription base, is a worldwide change. Some countries have actually made this transition at a faster pace than the U.S. and Canada. So that's why you see U.S. and Canada products affected at the top. If you have offices outside the country of the U.S. or Canada, you also will find on the Autodesk.com site other countries and their timetables and when they've already been impacted. Just as I shared about network licenses, if you currently own any of these products, they're in a standalone permanent license mode, and you would like to have them as network activated permanent licenses, you must make that change between now and July 31st. But even though we have a little bit over 6 months to go, please do not wait to the last minute to make these changes. So next, I'd like to talk about some of the most common questions that I still hear asked. And I may revisit some of the things that I've shared with you, particularly those that I think are really key. Again, it's important to know if you have permanent licenses, you can continue using those. And the key is to keep your maintenance subscription contract renewed. Do not allow that to expire if it's valuable to you to maintain the benefits of the maintenance subscription contract. If you do allow that maintenance subscription contract to expire, you still will be able to use your permanent licenses. You just will not be able to put it back on a maintenance subscription contract. It will maintain itself at the most current release that we have. And then in the future, if you want updated releases, you'll need to go back and actually subscribe underneath our desktop subscription model. I talked about how you can hold a hybrid or a combination of both rental or desktop subscription licenses as well as permanent licenses. And that's true. I know I talked more about the network environment, but certainly that holds true also for the standalone license environment. Now, many times customers will ask, well, what can I do with my permanent licenses after these deadlines? So I'd like to walk you through a very quick example because you do have some options after this January 31st date, but you need to understand they are limited. And everybody's situation is different. So I'm going to walk through a scenario, but if you have some questions about you have some permanent licenses and you want to change what type of license they are, my first recommendation is reach out to CTC right after this webcast, provide them your specific details so they can walk you through what your options are. So from a high level, let me give you the example that if I currently own a permanent AutoCAD license, and I want to convert that or cross-grade that, as we would use from an Autodesk perspective, to a license of Civil 3D. I have between now and the end of next week to be able to do that. Move from a permanent AutoCAD license to a permanent Civil 3D license. Well, what if it's February 15th and I want to make that same transition? Well, after January 31st, we're no longer selling an individual product solution point product of Civil 3D. It's permanent. But we are still selling our design and creation suites. So you could, after January 31st, you could cross-grade your AutoCAD permanent license to one of our design suites that provide you access to the Civil 3D license. Well, after July 31st, we're no longer selling those suites. So let's say it's now August 15th and you have a license, a permanent license of AutoCAD. Well, we're not selling permanent licenses anymore, so you're not going to be able to migrate that to another type of permanent license. So that's why it's important that if you do have some changes within your software mix that you want to make, work with CTC today to understand what your options are and what your timelines are that you need to work within. Now, it may seem like we're coming up tight against these deadlines, but Autodesk has shared these deadlines now for over a year. And we have shared our strategy of making this transition for about 2 years now. We've got a little less than a year to finish out our transitioning, but we really have worked to provide customers with the longest leadway and notice to the changes coming so that you could evaluate what your next steps were going to be. We are looking to provide all of our current solutions that we provide as permanent licenses available to you in a desktop subscription model. The only product that we have announced that we will be discontinuing is our AutoCAD Design Suite. That's independent, and that decision has been made independent of our move to subscription. So that's the only product that has been impacted in terms of being discontinued. Now, some customers will ask, with the end of selling permanent licenses going away, whether that be products impacted by January 31st or July 31st, should they stock up on permanent licenses now? And that's really not a question I can answer. Each business is unique and individual. Your organization may decide to purchase a few additional permanent licenses and keep those on maintenance and continue managing your licenses as you do today. There are other firms who have looked at the desktop subscription and they see how they can seamlessly integrate and have a hybrid work environment, so they don't see a need to purchase additional licenses. It comes down to your organization, what your requirements are, and how you're looking to manage that. So again, having that conversation with CTC could be very valuable. I've talked about a number of the perks and services available for subscription. The key thing that I want to note, and this is really important to the AEC customer base, is the previous use rights are highly leveraged with our subscription customers. Keep in mind, if you allow a maintenance subscription to expire, or you're not maintaining a desktop subscription for your software solution, you no longer have access to previous versions. So if that's important, make sure that you're current on a contract. I've talked already about transitioning a permanent standalone license to a permanent network license. And again, you want to do those prior to the deadline for the products I've shared. The last question that many times I get asked is, how can I or will I be able to purchase a desktop suite? And you can do that today. Our design and creation suites are also available in a desktop subscription model. Autodesk is committed to providing solutions and providing them a way that gives our customers flexibility, whether that be providing it as a single user or a networked or multiple user license, and whether that be within allowing flexibility to acquire that license for 30 days, for a quarter, a year, or even extend that year out to 2 to 3 years to really maximize that subscription contract, so it's renewed only 3 years then. Now, one other question that comes up that I don't have up here on the screen that I want to address is you can prorate and coordinate your maintenance subscription contracts as well as your desktop subscription contract to expire at the same time. So it becomes an easy contract for you to manage. You will maintain 2 subscription contracts, one for maintenance, one for desktop. But they can be prorated or correlated so that they expire on the same date for ease of renewal. You know, I've shared a number of things with you from a very high level today. And you may be asking, you know, well, what do I do next? Or I have specific questions that haven't been answered. As Nate shared, there is a chat box that you could be typing in additional questions, and if we have time, we'll answer some of those at the end of this webcast. If not, CTC will be following up with you to make sure you get the information you need. But from a high level, I want to leave you with these 3 thoughts in terms of what you should do next. One, you always want to review the technologies you're using and how you're utilizing them, as well as acquiring to ensure that you are keeping your ability to compete in place today, but also going forward in the future. I encourage you to set up a meeting with CTC to review your business specifics and ensure that all the key stakeholders within your organization are involved in that meeting. So what do I mean by stakeholders? If you're listening to this webcast and you're not responsible for deploying the software, somebody who is would want to join this conversation. If you're not responsible for the financial funding of the software, meaning does it come from a capital expenditure or an operating expense, you may want to find out who within your organization does care about that, because there are benefits and advantages to each model, and they'll want to be engaged to make sure their needs and how your company wants to acquire is in place. Now, the best news is if you're on this webcast and you use the software to really deploy and execute on your day-to-day job. The software is the same software, whether you're using a permanent license or a desktop subscription license. We're really talking about how you are modeling and how you're contracting to keep those licenses current, as well as have access to the additional benefits of subscription.